What if everything you've ever been told about happiness was wrong? Not just a little off, completely upside down. Because according to Jesus, true happiness isn't found in money, status, or getting everything you want. In fact, it might just be found in being poor, in spirit, in mourning, in being merciful, even when it hurts. Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what Jesus laid out in one of the most famous and radical teachings in history, the Beatitudes. This isn't just religious poetry. It's a blueprint, a roadmap, a revolutionary way to live that flips the world's definition of success on its head. And in today's video, we're going to break it all down, in plain English, with real-life applications you can actually use. So grab a seat. This might just change the way you see life and happiness forever. Imagine this. A massive crowd has gathered on a hillside. Some came to be healed. Others were just curious. Most of them were poor, tired, overworked, forgotten by the Roman Empire and ignored by the religious elite. And then Jesus walks up, not to a stage, not with a microphone, just a hill. And instead of shouting commands or laws, he speaks words that are soft but powerful, words that would echo through history. He starts with 8 simple phrases. We call them the Beatitudes. From the Latin word beatus, means blessed or happy. But here's the catch. These blessings don't go to the rich, the powerful, or the successful. They go to the humble, the hurting, the hungry, and the misunderstood. When we look at the Beatitudes one by one, they each feel like powerful life lessons. But when we take a step back and see them together, we notice something even deeper. They tell a story, a journey that starts with the heart. 1. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's the first step, realizing we need God. It's a crack in the ego that lets the light in. Now, let's pause. What does poor in spirit mean? It's not about being financially broke. It's about recognizing that we don't have it all together, that we need help, that we're spiritually dependent, not self-sufficient. It's like showing up to life saying, God, I can't do this on my own. And strangely, that's where real strength begins. Psychology backs this up too. People who admit their limitations tend to be more resilient and grounded. Admitting weakness is the first step towards growth. Jesus is saying if you can be honest about your need for God, you're already ahead of the game. Number 2, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Okay, this one really flips logic upside down. How can mourning be a blessing? Jesus isn't romanticizing sadness. He's showing that grief is actually a gateway to healing. When we mourn, we're being emotionally honest. We're facing life's pain head on, and that's where comfort comes in. Think of it like this. Numbing our pain only delays healing. But when we mourn, with God and with others, we open the door to real comfort, real connection, and real transformation. It's not about being happy instead of sad. It's about finding hope through the sadness. Once we recognize our need, we begin to feel deeply. We grieve what's broken within us and around us. It's not weakness, that's spiritual awakening. Number 3, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Now, meek sounds a lot like weak, right? That's not what Jesus meant. Meekness is controlled strength. It's not being a pushover, it's knowing you could react with force, but choosing restraint, kindness, or patience instead. Imagine someone cutting you off in traffic. Meekness isn't pretending you didn't notice. It's choosing not to chase them down honking like a lunatic. In other words, meekness is power under control. In a world driven by ego and outrage, that's a radical and rare form of strength. After grief softens our pride, we no longer need to dominate or defend. We become teachable. Number 4, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. We all crave something, success, attention, a third slice of pizza. But Jesus says, crave what's right, not just for yourself, but for the world. Long for justice, for integrity, for things to be the way they should be. And when that's your hunger, your drive, you'll be satisfied in ways temporary pleasures can't offer. Fun fact, studies show that people with purpose-driven lives, Those chasing something bigger than themselves report higher levels of long-term happiness and fulfillment. Coincidence? Probably not. With a clear heart, we start longing for what truly matters. Not success, not applause, but righteousness. From there, something shifts. We stop focusing just on ourselves and begin to look outward. Number 5, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Let's be real, mercy doesn't come easy, especially when someone really wrongs you. But Jesus teaches that giving mercy makes space for healing, not just for the other person, but for you too. It's not about ignoring injustice, it's about choosing not to let bitterness own you. And here's the kicker, when you choose mercy, you open yourself to receiving it as well. In relationships, work, even parenting, mercy creates a cycle of grace that's contagious. Mercy helps us see people differently. We forgive because we've been forgiven. This also reminds us that Jesus emphasized a spiritual law of reciprocity. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Luke 6:37-38. Number 6, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Purity here isn't about being perfect. It's about it being authentic, undivided, wholehearted. To be pure in heart is to have your inside match your outside. People can spot a fake a mile away, but someone who lives with integrity, who's real about their struggles, but still striving to do right, that's powerful. And Jesus says that kind of heart opens your eyes to see God in your life, in others, in everyday moments. We're no longer driven by mixed motives. There's peace between what we say and who we are. Number 7, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Peacemakers aren't just people who avoid conflict. They're the ones who enter into conflict to bring resolution. They step into the mess, the tension, the awkward conversations, and try to bring healing. Peacemaking's hard, and it takes courage. But in a world full of division, gossip, and online arguments, peacemakers shine like lights in the dark. And Jesus says that's being part of God's family looks like. Not just avoiding conflict, but actually building bridges, mending what's been torn. Number 8, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay, let's be honest, no one wants to be persecuted. But Jesus knew that when you live differently, when you choose truth, humility, mercy, people might push back. You might be misunderstood, mocked, even hurt. But he says, you're not alone, you're in good company, and heaven is yours. The final beatitude is both a warning and a promise. The path Jesus invites us to walk isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Even when living this way costs us something, we don't back down, we carry this light boldly. So what's the bigger picture? The Beatitudes aren't random virtues, they're a blueprint for spiritual transformation. They move us from brokenness to boldness, from need to purpose, from self to service. Jesus isn't just showing us how to be nice, he's showing us how to be real, how to live fully, honestly, and with deep joy even in a difficult world. It's not about earning God's love, it's about responding to it. Each step is a response to grace, and together they paint a picture of the kind of people who quietly change the world by living upside down from the values of pride, power, and performance. The Beatitudes aren't just a checklist. They're not 8 separate rules. They're a portrait of what a kingdom-minded person looks like. Someone who's humble, who mourns with compassion, who uses their strength wisely, who craves what's right, shows mercy, lives honestly, builds peace, and stands firm in their faith even when it costs them. In a word, this is Jesus describing what true happiness looks like. Not the kind you chase on Instagram, not the kind that fades after a vacation, but the kind that's rooted in character, in soul-deep peace, and a life that matters. Now let's get practical. What does this look like in our daily lives? At work, be the kind of person who doesn't gossip, who stands up for what's right, who leads with kindness. At home, practice mercy with your spouse, your kids, your annoying brother-in-law. Online, be a peacemaker in the comments section, Warzone. Be pure in heart in a world of filters and fakes. In your spiritual life, start with humility. Tell God honestly where you're at. Mourn what needs to be grieved. Ask for a hunger for what's right. You won't get it perfect, but that's okay. The Beatitudes aren't about perfection. They're about direction. And every time you choose the path Jesus laid out, you're building a life of real joy, no matter what circumstances come your way. So here's the question. What if happiness isn't found in getting more, but in becoming more? More humble, more merciful, more real. Jesus didn't come to sell you a self-help plan. He came to offer a new way to be human, a way that leads to wholeness, peace, and purpose. And it starts on a hillside with 8 strange, beautiful blessings. The Beatitudes. Not just ancient words, but a living invitation. Will you take it? If this video spoke to you, remember to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use a little peace today. Drop a comment below. Which Beatitude do you feel God's calling you to grow in right now? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video right here on Bible Unveiled.